Hey folks, if you don't live under the rock, over the last week or so, you must have heard about Klaviyo. Klaviyo has just filed its S1 form for the IPO, and it's going to be the biggest IPO in SaaS, actually, the first IPO in SaaS since 2021. So it's sending the world the signal that essentially SaaS is back, and maybe we can put the recession times behind us slowly. And what's interesting about this case is that Klaviyo is hailed as a PLG SaaS. It's serving the SMB sector. Most of its customers, like the annual contract value, is typically around $4,000. So these are not enterprise companies, but at the same time, it's growing at a super fast pace. It's still growing. Like 56, yeah, almost 57% year on year at currently 650 million ARR. It's becoming a behemoth in the e-commerce space. And I quickly wanted to dissect what Klaviyo has done that has been such an amazing play for them in terms of PLG and what lessons we can learn from them. Of course, disclaimer, Klaviyo is strapped to e-commerce platforms, mostly Shopify. 77% of its revenue comes from Shopify customers. So obviously, this is kind of a big platform risk. It's at the same time a big growth engine, because basically they have a deal with Shopify and to an extent upselling Klaviyo to its customers. Klaviyo also has a very strong network of resellers and partners that are driving, I think, as far as I remember, I've read around 22% of their revenue. But still, what is super interesting for an SMB SaaS is the NRR. So, net revenue retention, essentially, how much revenue is Klaviyo generating from its existing customer base? So, if they were to acquire zero customers in next year, how much would they still grow? And the NRR is positive. It's 119%, which is a very, very healthy number. And it's kind of unusual for SMB SaaS products because typically the churn rates are much higher in SMBs. It's much more difficult to upsell them. So, what has Klaviyo done that is so different that let them achieve this NRR? Well, I'm dissecting this in this newsletter. But first of all, the first thing that springs to mind is that Klaviyo has tied everything they do to their customers' revenue. So they have developed an internal value metric, which is called CAV, which stands for Klaviyo Attributed Value. And that's calculated based on the revenue that has been generated from the campaigns sent through Klaviyo, with a time attribution window of 24 hours for SMS and 5 days for email. So CAV is displayed very prominently on Klaviyo's dashboard. The customers can immediately see the return on investment in Klaviyo. What's next? Klaviyo has also tied its features, its product roadmap to their customers' ROI. So every feature they are building, they're thinking of how it ties to driving that return on investment. What's also interesting is that they are publicly speaking about how much CAV they are generating for their customers. And it looks like the increase in Klaviyo attributed value, so the return on investment in Klaviyo for their customers, is correlated with Klaviyo's growth to a large extent. Right, they're also, as Taylor Wells put it, maniacally focused on self-serve service expansion, revenue expansion. Um, how do they do that? Essentially, they have created features that are supposed to drive even more revenue, for instance, through upsells. And now, inception time, they are upselling the upsells flows to their customers. So again, their customers know that by investing more in Klaviyo, they will be able to unlock even more revenue. I sound like a news anchor, don't I? Here's the example of the upsells flow. Read the newsletter, of course, to learn more about it. And also Klaviyo's onboarding. This is probably the most tricky part because when I first signed up for Klaviyo, the friction was so huge. I had to first go through like 5 screens of capture. Then there was this super long onboarding survey, right, which asked me about like my industry, business type, customers, use case, etc. But then the onboarding was actually personalized to my use case. And even though it looked a bit like a step by step product tour, what gave me the wow factor, the aha moment, was that I actually was able to publish the outcome of my onboarding flow at the end of the flow. So I was actually working on designing a real living pop up to collect subscribers and their phone numbers on my website, on my e-commerce store. And by the time I have finished the product tour, I was actually able to publish it. Another PLG play that Klaviyo has used that you can easily copy is this checklist. It's built into their product natively, but it works exactly the same way as our checklist widget, which you can try for free for 14 days with User Pilot's trial. But here, essentially, you can see how many minutes every step in the onboarding process is going to take you. And that kind of fosters this endowed progress effect where you feel like completing a certain checklist because you've already started it. Human nature, again, tap into the power of checklists in your onboarding to push more people to complete them. Right, so to sum up, what Klaviyo is doing right is that everything they do revolves around the outcomes for the customers and that they actually have operationalized the outcomes as revenue. So, who doesn't want to see the ROI on using a product they have bought? Obviously, a rhetorical question. If you're able to find that value metric and ideally translate that into specific numbers for your customers, do it and make sure you're displayed very prominently in your dashboard. Maybe you will achieve similar results to Klaviyo, and hopefully I will be able to write the next newsletter about you. Okay, that's it for today. That was super long. Hope that was interesting. Read the whole newsletter. And if you want, of course, learn more about upsells and packaging your product to drive more expansion revenue, sign up for Chris's talk on Product Drive. We're less than a month away. I'm super excited to see you all there. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.